So the next scenario we're going to look at is whether to drop a product. We're not going to look at product mix or sales mix transactions, so you could ignore those as you're going through your book. We're just going to be looking at dropping a product and deciding when we want to drop a product or a segment. So things that we need to consider is, does the product or segment provide a positive contribution margin? Remember, contribution margin is revenue minus variable cost. If it does, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes we'll vote to keep the product or segment if it's providing that positive contribution margin. So we need to examine then, will the fixed costs continue to exist even if we drop the product? So these fixed costs we have allocated. Remember how we allocate overhead using our predetermined overhead rate? Some of the overhead we allocate is variable, meaning it would go away, and some of the overhead we allocate is fixed. It won't go away just because we drop the product. So we can't assume that just dropping the product means that the fixed overhead is going to go away. What's going to happen is that it will have to be reallocated to the other two departments, or the other two segments, or the other however many. So think of it this way. If the rent on the factory is $90,000 and you make 3 products and you decide I'm going to allocate it evenly, then each product gets $30,000 of overhead. But if you drop one of the products, you've still got to pay the rent on the factory because you're making the other 2 products there. It's not that that goes away, it's just that each product now gets $45,000 of the rent allocated to them. So we need to look at whether it's the allocation that's causing it to appear unprofitable or whether it's the actual cost. So we also need to look at, are there any direct fixed costs that would be avoided? So for example, if we quit making this product, are we going to get rid of this piece of equipment that has really expensive repairs? In that case, some of the fixed costs would be avoidable, meaning they would go away, and some would not. Another thing is, if we drop this product, will it affect sales of our other products? So for those of you that have taken economics, we're looking at whether these are complementary goods. Are people buying one product because they're buying the other product, right? If we're a company that makes toothbrushes and toothpaste, then dropping our toothbrush division probably isn't going to affect sales of toothpaste. But let's say that we're a company that makes printers for your home, and therefore we make ink for your home. Now, I guarantee you, if you look at Epson or Hewlett-Packard or one of these companies that makes printers, if you were to look at their divisions, the printer division is operating at a loss. But the ink, that's where they're making all the money. Now, if we drop the printer division, though, people aren't going to buy the ink. So we have to keep this product that's selling at a loss so that we can sell the complementary product, the ink, at a high enough profit to cover both products. And then the other thing we're going to ask ourselves, is there anything that we could do with the extra space that would be more profitable to us? And we'll talk about some of those scenarios. So here we have our standard tablet division and our premium tablet division. And at first glance, we see the premium tablet division is operating at a loss. It's losing $5,000, while the standard tablet division is doing very well, has $236,000 of profit. So at first glance, we might want to say, oh, we should just quit making the premium tablets. They aren't actually making us money. But let's look at this a little closer. If we were to drop the premium tablets, we would lose the revenue of $230,000. Now, let me pause and say, it could be argued, and usually when I'm teaching in class, this is where a student raises their hand and we have these discussions back and forth. And so if you're having these thoughts as we're going through this, I hope you'll go to the message board and post your thoughts and we can have those discussions there. But it's possible, okay, it could be argued in this scenario, well, if we stop making the premium tablets, the people who were going to buy the premium tablets will just buy the standard tablet. And maybe that would be true. Maybe some people would say, I would just buy the standard tablet. But maybe it would be true that they would say, no, I don't want the standard tablet. I want whatever feature is on the premium tablet. And so if you stop making the premium tablet, I'm going to go to a competitor. So an example that I would use would be an iPad by Apple. So I realize Apple has more than two kinds of iPads. They have a ton of iPads, right? But they have some iPads that have the Apple Pencil compatible and some iPads that don't. So if we say, hey, we're going to drop the iPads that have the Apple Pencil, that are Apple Pencil compatible, it could be argued that those customers are not going to go buy just the standard iPad. They're going to go buy a Microsoft Surface because what they really want is that Apple Pencil tablet. They want that ability to write on the screen, and so they would go to a competitor. So that's the scenario that we're working under here. So that we're working under the assumption, and in real life you'll have to discuss this with your team, but we're working under the assumption that if we cut the premium tablets, we're going to lose all 230,000 of sales. Those are just going to go away, right? We're also going to assume, well, if we drop the premium tablet, guess what? We don't have to pay the manufacturing cost. We don't have to pay the selling and administrative for that. So we're going to save 140,000, but we lost 230 in revenue. So really we're losing 90,000 in contribution margin. So this should bring me pause a minute and go, ooh, while the premium tablets are operating at a loss, they have positive contribution margin of 90,000. I need to dig a little deeper. I need to look. I'm wondering if any of these 95,000 of fixed cost are avoidable. Or would these 95,000 of fixed costs just be re-added over here? Because if they're just going to be re-added to the standard tablets, then I probably don't want to cut this product, right? So let's work under the assumption that they are not avoidable, that they're just going to be re-added. So in this case, the manufacturing cost for the fixed manufacturing cost for the standard tablets is not 110, it's now 180. And the fixed selling and administrative is not 116, it is 141. So these costs are now 118 and 141, meaning our total cost, our total fixed cost is not 226. Our total fixed cost is 321. So that means our profit is not 236, it's now 462 minus 321. Our profit instead is 141. $141,000, where we were making a total of 231. So by cutting the premium tablets, we actually lost $90,000 in profit. Okay, even though it looked like we were cutting an unprofitable product. So let's look. So we need to ask ourselves, will those fixed costs continue? And are there any of the fixed costs that could be avoided, that could go away if we drop the premium product? So if we are assuming that the fixed cost will not change, then we will lose $230,000 in revenue and we will only save $140,000 in cost. So that's what we looked at on the previous slide. Now notice the decrease in revenue is a negative number. That's money that we're losing, and the cost savings is treating as a positive number. But this makes our overall profit is going to go down by 90,000, which is what we just saw on the previous screen. Now, what if we're told that all but 3,000 of those fixed costs would be avoidable? So in this case, out of that 95,000 of fixed cost, 3,000 would have to be allocated to the standard, reallocated to the standard tablet, but 92,000 would go away. Now, would this change our decision? So in this case, we would lose the 230 in revenue. we would save $140 in variable cost, and we would save $92 in fixed cost. So now we've saved $232,000, lost revenue of $230. Now we're expecting profit to increase by $2,000. So at first glance, we would say, oh yeah, totally. In this case, we should cut the premium tablets. It's going to save us $2,000. But before we jump to that conclusion, I want to ask you something. Will any jobs be lost if we cut the premium tablets? Because if they would, if we fired people, if we laid off workers in order to save $2,000, I have to ask you if it's worth it. What's it going to do to morale when it gets out to all of your other employees that the company fired your best friend? All of these people are now out of work in an economy where unemployment is rising, so that they could so that they could increase profit by $2,000. Because my guess is it's probably not worth it. We would probably still say, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to the economy. It's not worth it to employee morale. It's not worth it to just being a good citizen and being a good steward in our communities. I'm not going to do it, not to increase profit by $2,000. So again, things that we need to consider. If we drop it, would it hurt sales of other products? Is there something else that we could do? If we quit making the premium tablet, could we do something else? Could we make watches instead? So instead of firing all those people, we could retrain them to make watches instead of premium tablets. Now, our decision rule is if the lost revenues exceed the total cost savings, don't drop. And if the lost revenues are less than the total cost savings, then do drop. But of course, in real life, we want to take into consideration all of those qualitative non-financial factors as well.